So how comparable are the Subaru Ascent and Honda Pilot in 2024, as both models hit the market with major recent updates, and how do they stack up as competitors when it comes to size, space, cargo volume, towing, performance, power, and fuel costs, right down to dollars and cents? Well, I've got all of that and more coming up for you in what I think you'll find to be the most useful Honda Pilot versus Subaru Ascent comparison video on the internet. So let's get started.
Look, okay, to close this, I'm going to do this one down.
Yeah.
Want to bring it back up, pull that up, but it stops at like right up.
The Pilot and the Ascent are the biggest machines that Honda and Subaru will sell you. They're both three-row SUVs with standard all-wheel drive. The Ascent was originally launched for model year 2019, and it remains in its first generation after a major facelift and update for model year 2023. So this is the 5th year of the first generation Ascent, which is built in Indiana. The Pilot is in its 4th generation, which brought this all-new machine to market for model year 2023. So in 2024, you're looking at the 2nd year of the 4th generation Pilot, which is built in Alabama. Full Canadian pricing on your screen, but in summary, the span of pricing for the Ascent is about $13,000, while the Pilot model range spans $12,200. These two overlap each other on pricing in the low to mid $50,000 range, with the average price of the Pilot being about $9,500 more than the Ascent, and a fully loaded Pilot coming in just about $9,000 more than a fully loaded Ascent. Later, we'll be deep diving into exactly what these machines do with your gas dollars, right down to dollars and cents, but for now, let's see how the Honda Pilot and Subaru Ascent stack up on size, space, passenger roominess, and cargo volume. You may not have seen inside of one of these before, so let's hop on board and see how much room you've got. Very easy entry, a little bit taller than a standard Pilot, more or less though still just a slide over into your seat. No issue with headroom getting in through this door opening for someone of my size, being about 5'10" and 200 pounds. So let's take a look at the space here around me. Nothing cramped in terms of shoulder room, in terms of leg room, in terms of knee room. Nice wide opening here. Even with this fairly wide center console, we've got the wireless charging pad right here for our phone, some extra storage here, USB charge ports there, and a 12 volt under that little flippy. This is how we control the transmission: park, reverse, neutral, drive, other controls here for drive mode, downhill assist, parking brake, and so on. Loads of headroom even above with that sunroof, again at about 5'10". I've got easily over the width of my hand above me there in terms of headroom. Let's see how someone of my size now would fit directly in the 2nd row seat behind myself. Very, very simple. Again, just kind of a lateral butt slide. As you saw there, plenty of clearance overhead for this guy's noggin. So with the 2nd row seat all the way forward, knees are just to say touching the back of the 1st row seat. We can slide that back all the way here if we like. Probably recline it further, just like this if we want. Not quite as much knee and leg room as I was expecting, though still plenty. And definitely room for 4 adults to sit back here, lounge, and hang out. Great outward sight lines, lots of tall glass, and again back here in terms of headroom, I've still got 5 fingers worth of width above me, even with this sunroof here. Let's go hop into the back and take a look at the cargo area. Power tailgate, of course. So in this configuration, we've got a roomy enough 4-seater for 4 adults and all of this cargo space back here behind it. So if we need access to the cargo in the back or that 3rd seating row, just as easy as pressing this button right here, and that seat's gonna automatically get out of my way. Now I can walk back there into the 3rd row if I need to, or access the cargo this way if I like. Other thing we can do is actually flip these seat backs down and out of our way if we've got some longer or wider items to carry back here as well. So front seat, in case you haven't seen inside of one of these before. So 5'10", 200 guy here in my comfortable seated driving position. I feel like I'm sitting a little deeper down into the cabin of this than I'm used to in a crossover, giving me a little bit more headroom. Nothing obviously cramped or crowded here. Plenty of room for my legs to sit apart if I like. Good outward sight lines here. One thing to point out, pretty beefy, kind of chunky A-pillars here. In some competitors, These are much thinner. These are chewing up a little bit of your outward visibility, so just bear that in mind. If you're driving around in tight quarters, an area with lots of pedestrians, you are losing a little bit of visibility out the front sides because of these pretty chunky A-pillars right here.
I think they're trying to accommodate by putting a little second window in there.
Yeah, you've got this little extra window here, and you've got this great big, remember it was the Toyota Highlander Hybrid Max, where we were pretty impressed with these being about half the width of the A-pillars that we see here in the Subaru. Very easy step in, nice low floor. In we go. At least a full hand's width of knee room there. Nice flat floor all the way across the back, helping open up that sense of roominess. A little bit of extra storage here, some cup holders. Yeah, so multiple cup holders in the door, as well as 2 more down there on the floor. Additional charging storage pouches on both sides, which is nice. Come in place here. A little lever here. Oh, we're all the way back.
Oh.
So we're definitely all the way back. I mean, it's adequate legroom. It's probably more than adequate, but this seat is all the way to the rear of those tracks. If we want to squeeze it up a little bit more, give the person behind us some room, we can go about this far forward. So side by side, and starting with exterior dimensions, the Honda Pilot is 3.1 inches or 7.9 centimeters longer. That's a difference of 1.6%. The Pilot is also 2.5 inches or 6.4 centimeters wider. That's 3.3% wider than the Ascent. But the Ascent is a little over half an inch taller. That's 1.5 centimeters if you like. Interestingly, the wheelbase of these two machines is exactly the same, 113.8 inches or 289.1 centimeters. Comparing standard models on ground clearance, the Ascent has a 1.4 inch or 3.6 centimeter advantage. That's 19.2% more ground clearance in the Ascent than in the Pilot. Moving on board, overall interior volume figures from the EPA put the Honda Pilot in the lead by 20.3 cubic feet. That's a 13.2% advantage versus the Ascent. With all seats flipped up, the Honda Pilot has a slight advantage in cargo capacity. But for maximum cargo capacity, the Pilot pushes that advantage to 11.4 cubic feet. That's the Honda coming in with just over 15% more maximum cargo capacity than the Subaru. But the Ascent has more than half an inch more front legroom, that's 1.8 centimeters, an advantage of 1.7% versus the Pilot. In the second row, it's the Honda Pilot in the lead for headroom by 0.2 of an inch. That's half a centimeter. The Pilot also has a generous 3.1 inch or nearly 8 centimeter advantage in third row headroom versus the Ascent. That's 8.6% more third row headroom in the Pilot. The Pilot also leads the Ascent slightly for front and second row hip room, but the Ascent has 1.3 inches or over 3 centimeters more third row hip room than the Pilot, an advantage of nearly 3%. But for legroom in the second row, the Pilot fights back with a 2.2 inch or 5.6 centimeter advantage. That's 5.7% more second row legroom in the Pilot than in the Ascent. Third row legroom has the Honda Pilot in the lead by just under an inch, an advantage of 2.6%. And when it comes to shoulder room, the Honda Pilot leads in all seating rows with the biggest advantage again in the third. So to summarize, the Ascent wins on height, ground clearance, front headroom, third row hip room, and front row legroom, with the Honda Pilot showing the bigger numbers for width, interior volume, seats up, and maximum cargo capacity. Second and third row headroom, first and second row hip room, second and third row legroom, and shoulder room in all 3 seating rows. Power tailgate, of course. Let's see what's going on the back here.
It's like a 2-step. That's weird.
Yeah.
See that? Did you see that? Look, okay, to close this, I'm going to do this one down.
Yeah.
Want to bring it back up, pull that up.
This makes it easier.
But it stops at, like, straight up, and then you got to, it doesn't go any further, but I have to pull this one, and then I can.
Oh, yeah. A little bit of a tug there.
See, but that's where it stops.
Oh, yeah, it stops right there where you can't sit and it's like locked in place.
You have to grab the second strap to pull it back.
There we go. So we're going to pull this while pushing at least this far.
And then you can let it go.
And then down we go. To come back up, we pull this. It's going to stop us there for whatever reason.
Which is a really weird angle.
And then pull this one to get it all the way back. Nice and flat when it folds down though.
Yeah.
They've got this just to like the last millimeter of space here.
Yeah, that's...
so we don't close the tailgate on that. Finagle your finger in here and then push that. Where you see a lot of competitors where these will actually fold out of the way on their own. So fold these down. Little bit of a hump right there, just very slightly, but otherwise I'd say completely flat back here. With this, certainly not the most straightforward third row setup we've ever seen. Fairly easy, you'll get used to it in no time. But I think just a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. But exactly how do the two very different engines in these machines make use of your gas dollars? Well, it turns out you've got two pretty interesting choices here. The Honda Pilot is using a 3.5-liter V6 with 285 horsepower and 262 pounds of torque. There's a 10-speed automatic hooked up, and power goes to all four wheels. The Ascent runs a 2.4-liter flat-four boxer turbo engine with 260 horsepower and 277 pounds of torque. So the Honda Pilot has 25 more horsepower than the Subaru Ascent. That's an advantage of 9.6%. But for torque, the Subaru Ascent has an advantage of 15 pound-feet. That's an advantage of 5.7%. According to Natural Resources Canada data, most versions of the Pilot use 11.1 liters of gas to drive 100 kilometers on average. That's 21 miles per gallon if you like. And the more rugged Pilot Trailsport makes it 11.8 liters of gas on average to drive that same distance, call it 20 miles per gallon. But the Turbo 4 in the Ascent is right in the same ballpark, using 11 liters even to drive 100 kilometers. That's just slightly less than the Pilot, but basically a tie, also clocking in at 21 miles per gallon. Both engines run on regular grade gas, and if you're a Canadian paying $1.50 for a liter and driving 25,000 kilometers per year, then the math makes it an annual fuel bill of about $4,160 from the Pilot and $4,125 from the Ascent. So that's a monthly gas bill of just under $350 from either machine. If you're going for the Pilot Trailsport, it's an annual fuel bill of $4,425, roughly $370 per month, and that's about $20 per month more into the tank of the thirstier Trailsport, an annual difference here amounting to about $300. But consider that towing capacity is 5,000 pounds for both machines, and that fuel costs are a tie, and that they both do 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. And really, there's marginal to negligible differences between these two when it comes to fuel costs and performance. So which one would I buy? Alright, so here's the part of the video where I put aside the numbers and specs and give you my own sort of personal take on these two, and which one I'd spend my own money on. And in this case, it's actually really tough to say. If you're watching on YouTube, you can check out my full report on each. They're linked down in the description below. But my main takeaway is that though the Ascent is feeling dated in some areas, and though the Pilot to me feels like a more modern and up-to-date package, you do have to mind that price gap. Again, the Ascent coming in many thousands cheaper, and it could leave $7,000 or $9,000 or $10,000 in your pocket for groceries. These are two top-rated brands and two highly regarded SUVs, so my choice probably is the Ascent, simply for the cost savings and superior torque output for my gas dollar, even though I personally prefer the Pilot's styling and especially its interior and interfaces. That said, if your budget is more flexible than mine and if you're really looking for something with a modern and fresh interior, I think you'll likely find good value for the extra spend on the Pilot. Be sure to share your take with your fellow drivers in the comments section below if you're watching on YouTube. And don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons while you're down there so you never miss a new upload, and we'll see you in the next video.